We begin the 19th chapter, continuation, of course, the 18th chapter, which begins a new section about what we call the Ava Misuteris, the hidden love, which is kind of an oxymoron. How's love hidden? We'll find out more about that today. We asked, where does this love come from? And how do we merit to have it is, as we explained, from the patriarchs. What is the unique quality of this love, or the source of it? Chachma, as we explained, beyond comprehension. That's what defines the Jewish soul, as we explained at great length yesterday. The uniqueness of the Jewish soul coming from Chachma. How does that Chachma that is beyond comprehension reflect itself, or express itself rather? Is by giving up your life for no reason. Not because you live for God, but because you can't disconnect at that point, as we explained at great length previously. So we've explained this hidden love, that the root source of the love is from Chachma, and that we inherit it because of as an inheritance of the forefathers. We had two other questions. What's the nature of this love? Love, the nature of the love is usually when we speak about love, it's about the lover desiring the beloved. It's a yesh mishahev. There's that one who is loving and desiring to bond and to connect. That in a way that fills the person. We're going to learn here that this is a different kind of love. And it strives for something different. Usual love that we strive for is to feel connected. And it fills us and makes us feel good. Right? Let's understand this kind of love. It's a different form of love. And it's to elucidate it, the nature of this hidden love. So we need to clarify the verse in Mishlei, Ecclesiastics, or Proverbs rather, sorry. In Proverbs it says, Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam. The soul, the neshama of man is the candle of God. In other words, a soul is like a flame of the candle, the soul that we're talking about here. What is the nature of the flame of a candle, the fire of the candle? It flickers upwards. Meaning the flame seeks, look at the flame. You look at your Hanukkah menorah, which the custom is to sit by it and watch it. It tells a story. One of the stories it tells is about the very nature of a flame. It's to flicker, so to speak, out of itself. It sort of wants to separate from the wick and to be absorbed in the universal element of fire, which is in the sublunar sphere, as the Eitz Chaim explains. There are 4 elements in creation. The lowest of them is earth. Then comes water. Then comes air. And that's why air surrounds water and earth, being that it's higher than it. Even though earth is higher than water, but yet it's a lower element, it's only because of God's kindness that it's not subsumed by the water. And then finally we have fire. that's even greater than air, where air is sort of more stagnant or stationary. Yes, it is beyond earth and water, and surrounds it, so physically higher than it. A flame is yet even higher than air, because air stays where it is, so to speak. It doesn't move. Of course, wind can move it, right? But air itself. Fire, though, is flickering upwards to the root source. You kind of want to even leaves its place in this world, desiring to kind of remove itself from the wick. That's when the flickering of it, right? The wick holds it down, of course. Now, what would happen if that flame left the wick and it was subsumed in the sublunar level of the source of the element of fire, which is, of course, not a physical fire? What would happen? It would cease to be a luminary. It would cease to be a light, right? Be completely nullified. You know, it's like somewhat similar, but this is even more so, is you take a candle during a bright day, you know, it's not giving any brilliance. Here, though, if the flame of it were to just jump off the wick, it ceases to be. What does that mean? So the nature of the flame is not seeking to become more. It's becoming to become totally extinguished and nullified. Let's explain what that means. Everything in the physical world wants to be. It wants to exist, right? Not that it has a will like a human being does, or even an animal, right? There is no this mug doesn't have a will, but in a sense, its being is to be a mug. The pen to be a pen. The box of tissues to be a box. Right? And not only that, by the force of gravity, it's drawn downwards. But it's drawn downwards still to be what it is, but not to be not what it's not. And not to be nullified and to be no longer a mug. Again, it doesn't have a desire, but to take the idea here of everything is only wants to be what it is. Now, a human also wants to be. They want to be more, as we'll get to what that means, more fulfilled, greater person, a greater existence, not the mug. But there's nothing in existence that just doesn't want to be, right? It doesn't want to be, except for the flame. The nature of the flame is, right? The wick is holding it down, but the nature of the flame is not to be held down. It wants to jump off that wick and not be extinguished. Not that it's becoming a greater flame, right? Now, why does it so-called desire that? Again, so-called desire, the flame. Because that's its nature. Constantly straining to go upwards as though there was a conscious desire to be not a flame, subsumed in its source. That's a metaphor now that we're going to use for the nature of the love of the Jewish soul. And what is that? The nature of the love of the Jewish soul is not a love that it wants to feel more whole, more loved, more whole, right? I had my granddaughter, she came with my son to services this morning. And, I say hello to her and to give her a hug. Kind of shy because, all these men in shul, but she wants to, I wanted to give a hug, to feel the warmth, to feel the connection, to feel more filled. That didn't happen, but that's okay. I did it for her sake in the end. But that's the nature of love. Natural, the usual love that we talk about. But that's not the nature over here. Just as the candle constantly seeks to unite with its source, likewise, the neshama of a Jew, the ruach and nefesh level, the soul naturally desires and yearns to separate itself and depart, just as the flame wants to depart from the wick. The wick is metaphorically like the body. And what does the soul want to do? To unite with its source in God, the source of all life. And by doing that, what it does, it doesn't become a greater identity. It loses its identity in its source, in God, completely nullified, nothing remaining of its original essence. And yet, that's the desire and the nature, without a calculation. Not, it's calculated, let me get a bigger, reward in the world to come. That's not the nature of the soul, of the love of this soul. The love of this soul is it just wants to be bound up in its source, lose its sense of identity, like the flame wants to leave the wick and be bound up in its sublunar source above. Why? Not for any reason, because reason would dictate, I want to exist. And not only do I want to exist, but I want to become a bigger existence. What does it mean, a bigger existence? So for a human being, meaning I want to become more fulfilled, self-fulfilled, fill self, become bigger, right? That's the human condition. And that's what human beings want. And of course, that's a good thing when that self-fulfillment connects you to doing what God needs of you. That's wonderful. But this is a different point. It's not about being more connected to God to be more self-fulfilled, to fulfill even your purpose. That's not what we're talking about here at all. And we're going to have a difficult time to wrap our head around this one. Because that's not the nature of this love. Again, I just want to reiterate, most of ahava, love, is yesh misha ohev. Is there the lover that is loving? There is that yesh, there is that being, that mitzias, that thing that desires the love, the beloved. Why? Because it fills them more. It makes them more. whether it makes you more feeling good about yourself, makes you more happy, makes you whatever, right? It makes you more. That's the nature of the normal love that we're aware of. This kind of love, we're not aware of this until we come to Tanya. And that's why it's unique to the Jewish soul. Only to the Jewish soul, it's unique. That's not a negative thing about any other human being at all. It is just the reality of this soul that wants to be connected, not for fulfilling purposes, but because beyond logic, illogical, it just wants to be nullified out of existence and just be enveloped in the source of God. Not, again, losing its sense of self, sense of identity. That's the nature of this love. And we call it nature over here because when we use the word nature, it means something that's not in the realm of reason or comprehension. Why is it that way? Well, that's its nature. Right? We can't comprehend it. Again, because everything else in creation is opposite to that. It wants to be. Not only wants to be, it wants to even be more when it comes to like, right? Animal has a will, just don't want to be, wants to be more. Right? Human, all the more so. And that's the human condition. But that's not the nature of this soul that we're talking about. It's beyond reason. And that's why it's connected to Chachma. So now we understand this hidden love. And it's connected to Chachma, as we explained yesterday at great length. Chachma coming from the word koachma. Power. It's a power, but of what? Meaning beyond comprehension. What was that? Meaning, which when you say that, means you didn't get it. You didn't comprehend it. It was beyond your comprehension. Chachma is the source of intelligence, but it itself is beyond it. And therefore, it is a vehicle for the Ein Sof of Hashem, the limitlessness of God. That's what Chachma is. So, this is also then understood by the flame, the nature of this love, right, is it doesn't want to be, it just wants to be subsumed in the Ein Sof, in Hashem. That's its nature of this hidden love. Just to unite with its source, to be one with its source, not because you are more fulfilled through that. No, you're nullified. You have no sense of self as a result. That's a very unique idea. Until the Alter Rebbe expressed it or explained it, we had no inkling of this. At least for the simple folk like myself. I hope that's clear. Lin, but the flame needs air and oxygen. Absolutely. Of course. We're just explaining the uniqueness of a flame. Right? A flame needs oxygen to exist. That's not what the point we're making here. Again, when you look at a flame, maybe I don't have a, you look at a flame, you see how it's flickering up, and you see that it sort of like wants to dance off the wick. It's dancing on the wick, but it wants to jump off the wick. But the wick is holding it down. It's holding down something that doesn't want to be held down. Right? That's the point we're making. So, of course, for it to exist, it needs oxygen. Absolutely. No question about that. I hope that's clear. Lynn, thank you. John, was this the hidden love of Chokhmah that caused Jewish souls to depart when hearing the two first statements from God at Har Sinai? Maybe. Maybe. I mean, that's because the revelation of God was so powerful that the soul couldn't absorb it. So, perhaps. I have to think more about that. Thank you for the question, John. Bella has a question on Instagram. So you're saying that the love that we feel for God has nothing to do with Him. How connected we feel with God in our life has to do with the natural connection and the love that every Jew has with God. Okay, so thank you, Bella. So let me explain. Chapters 9 through 17 was speaking about the love that we have as humans. And what's human love? Well, you think about your beloved. That brings you to a feeling, whether it's palpable or just as we called in chapter 16, a intellectual love, right? That you want to cleave, you want to connect to God. That's the love that we spoke about previously. That the lover, right, which is in, again, chapters 9 through 17, thinks about, ponders, meditates, and the more deeply meditating about God and the greatness of God, the relationship you have with God, and so on, the more you're going to have a desire to cleave. That desire to cleave that we're talking about there is not this kind of love that we're talking about here. That's about me becoming bonded with Hashem in a way that is filling. That's normal, right? That's a regular love that we're aware of. This is part of the consciousness of, we can all meditate upon God, develop a feeling towards God, in whatever dimension, capability we are of love and awe of God. Absolutely. And want to cleave, want to connect, strive to connect. That's not what we're talking about here at all. It's a different kind of love. It's not a love that wants to cleave, to connect, to be more fulfilled. Right? That's not the love here. This love is not for that reason. This love is, it just wants to be subsumed in its source and losing its identity as a result. In the other form of love, you don't lose your identity. Your identity is your bond with God. That's not what defines a Jew. Everybody can have that, right? And we need to strive for that. But this is unique to the Jewish soul, right? It's not a love that you created. Remember, it's an inheritance. You didn't create this love. You didn't create the love of this soul. Its nature is it wants to leave the confines of restrictions, limitations, not because this way it becomes more fulfilled. No, it loses all sense of identity. It's not like, oh, now I'm really connected to God. I'm really, feeling the oneness. It's not feeling anything. It's just bound up in its source. Lost all identity. That's complete bittul. That's the nature of this soul. Now what that means and so on, so we gave already a little inclination. That's what it means. And for about, Well, we'll talk more about it in forthcoming classes, so we'll wait. I hope that's, again, as I said in the beginning of the class, it's going to take a little to wrap our minds around this one. We're not, it doesn't, that's why it's unique to the Jewish soul only, because it's not a normal kind of thing or love that one, has. Okay. Alice, if this is so prevalent in the Jewish people, why are many not conscious of it? Because it's what defines us. It's the Pintele Yid. It's the essence of the soul. I mean, that's why the Alter Rebbe is teaching this to us, so we should be conscious. We should be aware of it. It's what defines me as a Jew. It's a love based on God, His presence in me, rather than my seeking Him. Usually love is about the person seeking their beloved. That's in the human context. This is not a human thing. This is based on God. So the human thing is a lover seeks their beloved because that is comforting, it's soothing, it's fulfilling. It makes you more. That's normal love. This love is not that. So, we need to learn about it to be conscious of it. Lynn, hard question. Can our love not be reciprocated? Yeah, but what's that got to do with this? No, I'm not clear on your question, Lynn. I don't know what you mean to say by that. Yeah, regular love can be reciprocated because there's a lover and a beloved. So the lover seeks the beloved, and the beloved can reciprocate that love. Right? So you're feeling a love to someone, so you go and do something wonderful for them. Right? Okay? We understand that. Right? And that person will reciprocate. Hopefully that person will reciprocate that love and do something wonderful back to you. It's not at all this kind of love that we're talking about here. That's human. This is not human, so to speak. It's godly. Rachel, is there a limit to our love and connection to Hashem in this lifetime? No, why would there be a limit? I'm afraid I'm not getting across clearly the point I'm making. I'm afraid. Because I see from the questions that you're asking, you're not getting the point. And that's not your fault. It's my fault that I'm not obviously explaining it well enough. Did Aaron's sons take this idea too far? No. Sorry. Their love was not stemming from this, to the best of my awareness. Davida. Wasn't stemming from this. The Aaron's sons who went into the Holy of Holies with a great love of God, it was about their desire for the attachment. Okay. Lynn. HM. What does that mean? I'm sorry, Lynn. Gotta help me out over here. Okay, you understand. Great. Okay, June saying good night. Maybe it's too much. Well, it is Australia, so it is late. It's a love that is based on God as opposed to based on the person. Right? Again, based on a person, love is filling you up, right? It's making you more. This love isn't. You're losing a sense of identity. Right? Because of the nature of this love. We'll see more on this, we have to continue with the chapter. Elise, if I understand this correctly, this love is something that we have in our soul and are not aware of it consciously at all. Right, except till the Alter Rebbe now taught it to us. Now we're aware of it. We're not aware of it in the soul. We're aware of it in the idea that we just learned from the Alter Rebbe. Yes. It is the soul inside of us. That's the love of the soul, the unique nature of that love, or the unique quality of that love. Exactly. Well said. Lynn, Hashem's love. Yes. I'm sorry, I don't know what you mean by that. Is it contingent on full tshuva? Not at all. Again, this is the nature of the love of the soul that is coming from Chachma, that's a part of the soul of the Jew, regardless of how they behave. Right? Now, the more we're aware of this, and the more we reveal this, and that's what, chapters 20 through 25 are going to be discussing, how to access this in us. So we're going to get there. So, in that respect, tshuva, Lin, that plays a role. But in the fact of it, in the awareness of it, no. Just let's be aware and understand it. Okay. Okay, guys and gals. Amazing. You are. Beautiful. Rambam is coming up again tonight, 8 o'clock, a webinar. Go to TanyaRabbi.com/TRC, I think, or /beauty. TanyaRabbi.com/beauty. You'll get the link to sign up. Okay. It's a good entry level for TRC, for the TRC. All right. And JLI tomorrow. Don't forget the JLI if you didn't sign up yet. Go to JLIMontreal.com. JLI stands for Jewish Learning Institute, but JLIMontreal.com. And sign up for that. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you for Chabad, Zuch, and Kadesh, Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege, a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have an amazing, great day.